So, wow, you're doing a great job. And I really appreciate it. I mean, I can see it in you right now that this is a very sorrowful and sad place. And normally you don't let your partner see this because the negative cycle for you, it's like it's not safe. So a lot of energy comes out and you hide this part of you. But could I help you right now? I want to come alongside you. Could you turn right now and put to words with your partner and let them see what this sorrow and this sadness is saying right now? What's it like for you as a therapist when you invite a client into that vulnerable space and you have no idea what's coming back towards you?
Scary.
Scary.
Welcome to the Leading Edge in Emotionally Focused Therapy with your hosts, Dr. James Hawkins and Dr. Ryan Rana. EFT is a dynamic model that humbles even the most seasoned therapists. Together, we want to come alongside you as you continually push the leading edge of your understanding and application of this wonderful model developed by Dr. Sue Johnson.
Hey, welcome back. Glad to be with you. As always, we want to say thank you for your work, the hard sweat and energy that you put into helping folks who are, sometimes not so thankful. And it's pretty exhausting work, and we want to say thank you for putting yourself out there. It does make a difference, whether it seems like it is or not, so thank you. All right, welcome back to our What Scares Therapist series. Welcome back. This is James, his idea, and I love it. I think it's a great place. This is really the heart of what we're trying to do is to come alongside you as a therapist and then to, venture at least a little bit into nuance as much as you can in a podcast. And so we have a list of 11? 11 areas. And we're really going off of what we see here in trainings and supervision. And we were trying to pick out which one to do first for this episode. And I just said, you know what, instead of trying to figure that out, let's go with what we're hearing the most. And instantly you said, I'll tell you the one that I hear the most. And that's our topic today. What about how people respond to enactments? Enactments in general tend to scare therapists. They definitely scare clients. I would say at least half my enactments get some kind of block in the setup of them, at least half, if maybe more like 70%. So much so I just get used to it. Maybe that's one of the things we got to talk about today. But you jumped in with it's their response it's the responding partner not knowing what they're going to do, which really scares therapists.
Or particularly when I hear it in supervision or training, when I start teaching on enactments, hands shoot up across the room. And it always starts like this. What about if the other partner can't or won't respond?
Right.
And so that's where we're going, and that's scary for therapists because they are trying to going back to what Ryan was thanking you all for, you're caring, compassionate individuals who want to be able to see, you want to see people succeed in their vulnerability. And so the therapist body naturally feels, I'm not quite sure. I know what they're going to get with me, but I don't know what this other person's going to do.
Yeah.
And then what happens to the therapist bodies, it can be a couple things. They either try not to do the enactment, they get so wordy around the enactment because they're trying to make it so safe and so clear that it almost pulls the oxygen of the emotion out of the room in some ways, or it gets lost, or they just try and run the enactment through themselves. And that's acceptable sometimes, but ultimately we want them to be able to do the bonding or attachment work with their partner. So that's why we're trying to visit here is at least in this series, Ryan and I are not promising you that it won't be scary. But what we do want to do is come alongside you in the fear and learn what to do with that fear and give you some options to help you see the options. Because what I tell people, they'll say this, and this is not on me in a way. They'll say, James, you just really seem like you have such a willingness to go there anyway.
Yeah.
What makes you so confident? I'm like, well, my confidence is based upon, I know that once I get there, I have a series of options. I just have to be able to see it and choose one.
Yeah.
And it's right for you to be afraid and avoid it if you don't. If you think the only option is either it's going to 100% work or 100% fail, then we have every right to want to avoid it. But those aren't the only two options.
Yeah. It is scary. It is scary. I think if it's not scary, it's probably not worth that much. That's the problem.
Ooh.
For one thing,
Come on.
And again, like we said last episode, that part of you that's scared is some of the best parts of you. That's your vulnerability. It's the same thing you're going for with them. And I do get scared to go in there, but I would definitely say in my career, I'm way more scared not to. Because I know for sure what happens if I don't go there, which is more pain.
That's a good reframe, right?
So, yeah, and I believe it. It's like if I can't get in there, that feels scary to me. I'm like, man, I just got blocked out. The cycle just got me like it does them. That feels way worse on my body, and then I'll do some things that, not so good therapy, like I might overteach or something like that. And I walk away and that feels icky to me. So I think it's important to know it's not like this is scary, but everything else is safe. It's really multiple options of what can be scary there.
That's right. Because if we can't do these enactments, then where does it leave our couples?
Right.
Stuck in the same thing.
Yep.
Their whole relationship being dictated by the negative reactive cycle. And that's definitely, that feels like a no-go option to me.
Yeah. Or we give them information. And I don't mean to say all teaching or all psych ed is bad. It's not. But if that's all they get from us, what they have is some tools that they can't use because they don't have safety and there's not space for them to turn towards each other. Otherwise, if there were a usable space for tools, they could do enactments.
That's correct. That's it.
Yep.
All right. You ready to get into this some more? Want me to set it up some, or you got it?
You got it.
All right. So here we're talking about the response part. And so to get into the response, what we're gonna have another episode coming up. We'll go into more detail on this. Once again, giving all credit here. Well, I say yeah. I have to give credit to George. That's where I learned it from. George he used to teach this thing called the light system. He still teaches it. And the light system is like the light, if you're in America at least, the red light, yellow light, green light. And that's what we use to control traffic, to help prevent a catastrophe of everyone trying to blow through an intersection and people getting hurt and wrecked. So it's a way of controlling the traffic. And so you got to be able to read the lights. A green light says it's safe for you to go, to proceed through the intersection. A yellow light says, hey, you can proceed, but with caution, and be ready to come to a stop, though. Be ready to come to a stop. And then a red light is, do not go. If you go through a red light, then you are probably going to end up in a very bad accident. And so that's just the real quick, and we'll get more specific on the lights. Here, though, to be specific in this podcast is...
We're going to do a future, a couple episodes on the light system. We're just going to reference it today, right?
That's right. Thank you, Ryan. Okay. Thank you for saying that. In this particular episode, though, it's what scares therapists the most. They are scared out of their minds, worried about the red light. That is the red light, and I would say the yellow light. The red light is saying like, hey, there's not enough safety here. The person is not going to respond. Everything in them is saying, I am not going through the intersection. I'm not going to meet my partner on the other side. I'm just not going. Yellow light is, yeah, but there's some caution. There's some caution here. And then green light is all systems are go. It's clear. It's clear for you to go through the intersection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes the green light just needs an invitation, but yes.
Yep. And in some ways, we've done some episodes. I'm trying to look at our episode list. We've covered this red light concept in different ways. The episode, and I don't have the number pulled out in front of me now, we did on the ditch enactment here we've talked about.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that was a good one. But anyway, let's get clear here, Ryan. So I think, is it okay if we focus in on the red light one? Or you want to go yellow, red?
I was thinking green first. But
green? Oh, let's do it. Oh, you want to go through all the lights? Let's do it then.
I don't know. What do you want to do?
Let's go up to the green light. So what if you're doing an enactment and it's a green light response?
Yeah.
Y'all are going to feel really relieved here.
Yeah, I mean, don't do much. Play it.
That's right.
You're in Las Vegas, and if they deal you 4 aces and a king, just find a way to get your chips out there. And don't do too much. Mm-hmm. I have been a therapist, and I've seen lots of therapists over-talk those moments. Mm-hmm. So if they're green light or in the greenest light, in my experience, is not very many words, just physical movement. Attachment is a behavioral system. Mm-hmm. This is a whole nother discussion back to theory, but, it's so much of attachment's nonverbal. So if someone's reaching, let them do it. Kind of wait for your moment to start to decode what just happened with words. But I do think there's some green lights where the person's body, and that's a point I want to make, is something's happening for the body of the responder the whole time. Just something in the back of your mind to know when you're doing your tango 2, deepening moves, and you're looking, can you feel it right now in your body with one person? The other person's body's doing something too. And you're about to find out on Tango 3.
That's right.
Right. And so that green light is like, man, it's I'm going to use Sue's language. People get mad at me for saying this, but Sue said it. But their body is kind of impregnating this really, really attuned response. But sometimes they need a prompt. So just because their body's ready, they may have lost some of the dance rhythm of when to do it. So sometimes it's a prompt from us. So sometimes there's silence. We don't know for sure what that silence means until we go find out.
And so on that one, many therapists would probably say, oh, that's not scary to me, Ryan.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and up the ante a little bit. These yellow lights, though.
Okay.
Particularly when you try to set up the enactment and then the other person, you look over there and it could be something like they're just tapping their foot. They're kind of looking, but they're not really making eye contact with it. Or they might start to respond, but they start to respond kind of like some of these ways. Yeah, but, well, I don't want you to have to feel like that.
There you go. There's the number one yellow light in the world. Yeah.
I don't want you to feel like that.
I don't want you to feel that way.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's very, the emotional channel is just right, but those words are wrong, right? And that's confusing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So what would you say about therapists who are scared of these kind of like almost, I'm kind of there, but I'm kind of not yellow light.
Yeah.
And the part about I think he remembered George saying like a yellow light is just saying I want to be there, but there's still a little bit of mistrust.
Yeah.
Or my part of my attachment system still isn't fully there.
Yeah. I mean, I like it if the therapist is a little bit afraid. Like I said, I don't fear fear.
Oh, okay.
Fear has a function. So, if you're noticing, man, that's yellow, and I feel weird about that, I'm like, good, you're right on. Like I'm much more worried if you don't notice you just got a yellow light.
Oh, 100%.
That's what scares me. If someone is in the emotional channel and goes, I don't want you to feel that way, and the therapist says, tell them that, and they keep rolling, and now that initial sender's got a very mixed response, which is not the end of the world, but that would not be ideal. So.
And I like what you're saying here, Ryan, because there's one way where I look at the light system of I'm reading the lights of the client, but I like what you just did. And maybe sometimes I understand, my brain understands it differently. But you're also saying reading our own lights. Like, is our light system saying this is green, let's go? Is our light system saying no, this is yellow, go, but go with caution and be ready to stop?
Yep.
I don't think I really ever applied it to me, if I'm being honest.
Okay. Yeah, that's Gail Palmer stuff. I
didn't know that.
Oh man, yeah, she's saying your body will tell you when you're there, when you're deep enough, your body will usually tell you what kind of light you're getting. So that's that first point of attunement is really, paying attention to what's going on with us. So let's check in with that more after the break.
Do you believe in the mission of this podcast for you, for your colleagues, and for your clients? If you do, we'd like to invite you to invest with us.
Yeah, nothing happens without investment. I believe in the things that we're talking about make a difference in people's lives, like real lives that affect generations. So we'd love it if you'd invest with us. For sure, if you're having difficulties financially, please do not give. If you serve a very underserved population, do not give. But if the ideas from this podcast you use professionally, we'd love to invite you to invest with us to keep this thing going. Yeah, I think with the yellow light, so again, when I'm doing my Tango 2, if you're new to EFT, that means when I'm deepening on one side, and again, anytime we're deepening, the whole point of deepening, well, one of the main points, is to get a more clear signal out to partner, right? And so when we're doing that deepening and we're working with the body of the target, so to speak, of deepening, remembering that the other person's body is in an active process too. And if a yellow light comes forward, what that's telling me is in their body's process, a dilemma came forward, right? Where part of them wanted to go green, part of them had a little hesitation, a wobble is what George Fowler calls that, a little bit of mistrust, sometimes some disorientation. And again, sometimes it's just a little bit of disconnect comes forward. My emotional channel is right, my words are a little bit off. Or sometimes the words are perfect, but they're not embodied, right? So we want the therapist to be able to pick up on that, not to overthink it, but just to notice, hey, that's a yellow light either within your body or theirs.
Good. I like you like kind of delineating the different forms of a yellow there. Okay. All right. And so, what would you do? What does Ryan Rana's go-to move with yellow lights when it gets yellow?
Get in there.
Just get
Get in
just
there.
explore. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, depending on how deep I've just gone with the other partner. And so if I'm on mission, if we're in a deep, vulnerable place, I don't want to let yellow lights continue.
Okay.
That's my worst nightmare. I don't want an 11th sentence of a yellow light.
Yeah.
Because now what I've taught the sending partners don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So the yellow light is saying, hey, come help me.
Okay.
Come help me. Like having a driver's ed student, in the car. If they start to, veer off the highway, let's don't wait until the car's totaled before we get in there. So, it can be something simple like, hey, let me jump in, or I want to help you out, or like, hey, that makes sense. Just some sort of, I'm going to jump in with you over here and help sort this.
So that's it. Yeah. So I feel like I want to be a quarterback trying to call out a funny play, run interruption, parted out, 3-5, go.
Okay.
Ryan's a football player, so he probably picked up on the play call right there.
And half our crowd has no idea what you're talking about.
So here we go. So my typical go-to when it's a yellow light is just what Ryan just said. You got to jump in there.
Yep.
Give them about 3 sentences.
Yep.
You can give them 3 to 5, but you got to jump in and say, hold on. Y'all are doing such a good work. Y'all are doing great.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it. I hear, and now this is where we do the parts work part specifically. You've just interrupted it. Do some validation. Let them know they're doing it right. I think I hear a part of you that is, I think either I'll say I hear or I see it on their face. I look at their body posture and position. I see your hand touching your partner here, which says there's a part of you that can take this in with your partner, that's moved you towards them and closer to them. That's one. You sell that really gently. But then there's this other part of you. And now this is where you've got to do, this is when I've heard Ryan say, you've got to make about 5 kind of affect matching reflections of the mistrust. But I also see that there's other part of you that says, but what about this or this exception, or we've got so much good going on. Like, why do you feel so sad? I don't want you to be in this sadness. I'm trying to help you out. I hear that part of you. You need to give 3 to 5 reflections of your best attuned interpretation or conjecturing of the mistrust.
Yeah.
And I see that part of you, and I appreciate that. So thank you for letting me see that part. Your body should have that response, because it's like your body's like, I know there's something happening here, but then there's also this other part of you that wants to protest. Yeah. That part of you that maybe wants to protest or question. And now you can have different moves here with this. I'm just going to show one simple version that I do. It's, can I hold that for a moment? And can I set it aside here for a moment? And the reason why I want to set it aside, because normally the negative cycle takes over and crowds out this other part, the part of you that does want to respond. I'm going to come back to that protest, but that part of you that wants to be here with your partner, that can take in what they're saying, what is that part of you wanting to say or do for your partner right here, right now?
Yeah.
Can we do that? And now I've just parted them out.
Yeah.
And once they give the response, thank you so much, finish the mission. We'll have an episode on that again. Finish the mission as much as you can, and then keep your promise.
Yeah.
And come back over to move 2 with the partner who just responded.
Yep.
And say that protest that was there. Do we need to bring that back out, or is your body in a different spot now?
Yeah, and the reason that works is because you're making space for both of those parts. If you take away someone's security, you get a lot more blocked, if you can work with it. And I want to unpack something that James is saying when he talks about 3 to 5. There's a method to that madness. We're not trying to get you so specific, or we definitely don't want to get you counting.
And some of it comes from Sue now, actually. Yeah. I'll tell you the Sue part. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to say it's important, I think, to say that generally, because if you jump in there too early, once again, you don't give that person's body we need to make a little space for the mistrust, because if they could get rid of the mistrust, they already would have. So I've got to make some space for it to come forward. But if I But more typically what happens if I give them 10 sentences, now the emotion drains out. Now we've, the vulnerability's gone away. Now we've failed mission, which is okay if that happens, but we would love to give it every chance. That's why that 3 to 5 tends to be pretty effective to work with people's bodies well.
So here's why I like the 3 to 5 on one about jumping in with the interruption or refocus. But then you've said this too, Ryan, like when you match the kind of the protest part of the yellow light,
Right.
you need to give it about 3 to 5 reflections. You were saying that before, but then when I heard Sue talk about, you've got to be willing to reflect 5 times.
Yeah.
Because the first time you say, I get the good reason, their amygdala did not let that
correct.
message get through.
That's so important.
It takes, Sue
you,
would
Sue.
say, it
That's
takes
right.
about 5 times
does.
before you get past their amygdala's kind of like alarm,
Yep.
before they're like, okay,
Yep.
you get it. And their body will literally, you'll see them shift. Their body will say, you met the function of the signal. I'll turn the alarm off.
Yep.
Now, what do you need me to do?
Yeah, especially when you're validating protection. It takes that repetition. That's so key, man. She's right. She's right on. Like she's done this before.
Yeah, I know, right?
And it's so true. You validate once or twice, they don't even hear you.
Nope.
And you've got to slow them down. You got to get them to look at you. You've got to say, hey, I see this. This makes such good sense. Of course. Or I see the good reasons, And so that repetition is so needed in that moment.
Yeah. So now we do all of that in the hope that move right there is in hopes that we can convert a yellow light back to a green.
Right.
But it might not.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me go back just one more point. And, this is maybe too specific for a podcast, but since we started there, let's at least talk about it. The most common yellow light in the world that I've ever seen is I don't want them to feel that way. So you can take that to parts, but that may not be necessary. So, counseling class 101 and whatever university you may have attended, they teach you to ask what and how and be curious questions and not use why very often. That's usually a pretty good lesson for therapists, especially if you're trying to stay in emotion like we are in EFT. Because maybe the most common block in the world is for me to say, hey, what happens for you right here? And instead of you talking about your experience, you go up and you tell me why it happens. So why is not usually a great question. This is an exception.
Okay.
So when someone says, I don't want them to feel that way, especially if you can feel that they're emotionally present, why is your friend? You can just say, yeah, you don't. Why don't you want James to feel that way? And usually a significant longing or responsiveness comes forward. And in doing that, it just went green. So if it's like, I love him, I want to be with him, tell him that. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So why off that little soft yellow? And again, if you can use as few words as possible, it's efficient. Yeah. Whereas stronger yellow lights usually need parts work.
I like that move, Ryan. I haven't tried that one.
Okay.
Like, because what you're doing is you're trusting it and just running it all the way out in a way. Because you don't want them to feel that way. Because if they stay in that place and they keep feeling that way,
Yeah.
what do you see that doing to them? Or why don't you want them to? That's right. Just go with why don't you want them to feel that way?
Yeah. Especially if they're very attuned.
Because I love them. I care. Okay.
Like a lot of times they're like moving towards them. And I'm like, so what happens for you? Or what do you notice in your body when you hear about the sadness in their voice right there? And they're doing everything right. And then they're like, I don't want you to feel that way. I'm like, that's not the words we want to send back to the sender, if that's not clear to our listeners, because that's actually saying I care and I want to be with you, but I don't want you to feel that way has a funny twinge to it in terms of not accepting one's emotional experience.
Especially for the times, and I think it hits the pursuer and the withdrawer, because withdrawers have definitely learned.
Right.
When I'm this way, I'm kind of a burden. So
Right.
you're right, I'm burdening you again. And for the pursuer, it's, yeah, you're right, I knew it. If I'm not happy-go-lucky and smiling, nobody wants me.
Right.
So that's how it inadvertently could feed into that, by the way. So anyway, all right.
So but it also can be, I don't want you to feel that way in a detached way.
Yeah.
And that's their body saying, I need some work with parts here. I got 2 dilemmas that I don't know what to do with. Yeah. And so when someone's stuck in a dilemma, they tend to move towards a more protected space. I'm going to say that twice.
Okay.
When someone is in a strong dilemma, they tend to move towards less vulnerability. So it tends to lean red.
Okay.
and moving away from green. So that's perfect for what you were just doing with lots of parts, making space for both sides. And I would say, I don't know, you tell me, 60, 70, 80% of the time.
100%.
If I can do it.
100%. I didn't mean, I mean, that's how it works that way. It doesn't work 100% of the time.
But if I can do a tuned parts,
Yeah.
their body actually wants to go green. They called me.
That's right.
Don't forget that.
That's right.
So, it's not such a reach to make a space to give someone a chance to just take a minute about my concern and then come back for what my heart wants to say.
All right. Wow, Ryan, I really appreciate just kind of once again being able to go back to even that the most common yellow light of I don't want you to feel that way. Some people, when I bring that out in training, they're like, I never thought of it that way. But then when they bring it down, the therapists are like, totally get it. Totally get it.
Yeah.
So let's kind of get ready to land on this episode, and we're going to tease you for the next episode here in a moment. So we noticed we only talked about green and yellow. We're going to do this at what scares therapists the most around enactments, nothing but the red light on the next episode. But let's go again. Like, why is this yellow light scary, Ryan? And I think you said it.
Yeah, I think there's several things that make it scary, especially, if you're not expecting it, which is where I want to end in a minute. But yeah, it can create chaos. You can be concerned that you let down the sender. It can become unclear, just that disorder. And the closer you are to vulnerability, chaos feels even worse. So I think that can land on the therapist's body. What do you think?
Yeah, I like the one about the unclear. So the way I've seen this happen sometimes with a yellow light response, it leaves the other sender over there a little bit like there's a part of that was good, but then there's a part of that felt like some of the same of what we've been doing.
Right.
It's a mixed message that kind of can confuse the brain, where you said the confusion and unclarity.
Yeah.
And also, I want to validate it for therapists. Therapists, that there was so much more beautiful things there that could have happened, and it can leave you feeling like, it's like it could be like the player who we'll go with a musical artist. We use so many sports analogies, but it could be the musical artist who knows, like, man, like I sang that song tonight, but it wasn't the same as the first time I recorded. I was just off tonight, and they just don't feel good about their performance. And so sometimes for, I think, therapists who are really caring and attuned, they were like, yeah, some good things happened there, but I wanted more for them, because you love your clients and you really care. And it's like that yellow light response is like, I got them to get dressed up and come out for this. No.
Did I shave my legs for this?
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I would think. So
Okay. That's interesting. I haven't thought of it that way. That's educational. That would be scary then. Yeah.
Yeah, because therapists just keep like, well, I don't want to invite my partner to that if they're not gonna. I don't want to get them dressed up for the Janet Jackson concert if it's just going to be the teen talent show.
Okay.
I don't know why. I just had a session today where they were talking about going to a Janet Jackson concert.
Is that right?
So anyway.
Okay. Janet Jackson, Rhythm Nation. All right. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think, and it gets into where I kind of want to wrap a little bit today, and because for one thing, I love that we focus so much on alliance. I love that we focus so much on safety, but you can be over-focused on that. Remember, your clients are always sending signals that don't get responded to at all in distress relationships. So if you get them to send, 2% more clear, and they only get a 3% response, while that may not satisfy me, it's still more oxygen they get at home.
There we go.
So you can overprotect people sometimes. There's a titration here, and you got to crawl before you walk. And so we got to take small pieces, small steps.
And I want to take one. I want to pull from something you said earlier around that we didn't click in on probably. I like that. I know, you probably haven't done a research analysis, but the fact that you said 70, you think you said something like 70% of maybe your stage 1 enactments are yellow lights?
Oh, yeah, at least.
Okay. Thank you for putting at least some kind of way, because I think people on the other side, sometimes they think somehow that every enactment is going to be beautiful and nice.
Well, then you're not going to like doing this. That's what I want to talk about.
And what I want, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
And what I want to say to that too, though, this is stage 1 work, you all. They are coming in destabilizing in chaos. And so the way I kind of look at it is like when you first go out and try any new skill, you're going to be a little bit wobbly. Yellow lights are a part of the destabilization process. If you thought your clients were going to come in and do these green light, beautiful, go through the intersection with no problems role plays, they wouldn't be in your office.
Yeah.
Those people are out on a date, eat at Red Lobster, and they're not throwing cheddar biscuits at each other. Anyway, that's an inside joke here. Ryan says, if you send a couple to go have a date night while they're in distress, you're just setting up for a fight at Red Lobster. But
Yeah.
anyway.
I know what you meant by that, but I don't think enactments are skill based. I think your clients have plenty of skill.
That's good.
They had plenty of skill to get in this serious relationship. You got to have a lot of skill to even get in cycles, right? It's not a lack of skill. This is a muscle that's trained or untrained, right?
That's it. Yeah.
And this is a wounded muscle.
Yeah, that's what.
So I had a horrible injury last Wednesday. It's shocking, right? James is laughing because I get hurt all the time. And
you pointed to the area where you tore when we were out in Vegas.
It's that same hamstring. It's been hurt since '93. So anyway, another injury while I'm lifting, and it was so incredibly sore for 3 or 4 days. I taught an EFIT class sitting on an ice pack, and but it's like if you saw me walk, you would think that I'm unskilled at walking, right? And Jay, you laugh. You enjoyed that. You enjoyed that a little too much right there. But no, I don't lack walking skill. I have a wounded muscle.
Oh, that's good.
That is now weakened because of an injury, and that's what you're looking at. These folks don't lack skill. They're wounded. They're hurt.
Yeah.
They lost access to the power that they have otherwise.
Thank you for jumping in on that reframe of that image.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find an image for it, but I like that.
Yeah.
This is a wounded muscle that they're having to kind of come back in. Yeah, I like that. Right?
But they'll appear as if they're miscommunicating, as if they're unskilled or don't know love languages. That's what people do when they're wounded.
And like a good skills kind of sports medicine, it's like they're going to bring the athlete in and say, hey, I got to get you to do some game-like movements, even with the soreness, but in an appropriate measure till we can fully get you up to speed and strength.
Yep. And, even as bad as my hamstring is historically, I've torn my hamstring 16, 17 times after an original tear as an athlete. But, what I was doing 200-pound hamstring curls, So it's like, okay, sure, I shouldn't have been doing that. But the point is, it's not that I don't have a muscle or lack skill. I just, whatever happened that day and I'm injured. And so it's important that you fight for that, to believe in your clients. But also the second part I want to talk about, this is going to sound redundant if you listen to us regularly. You have to change your expectations before you get there. So when you have a participant raise their hand and say, but what if they don't respond properly? The correct answer is they're not going to, they shouldn't be able to, and you need them not to. So if I drop into enactments and everything goes green every time, we're off.
Wow.
We're off. Something's wrong. Because the people who can do green lights should not be in your office.
Okay.
So you need to see these yellow and red lights. That is your MRI. So we have to change our paradigm. And I know it's difficult as a humanistic therapist. It's hard not to root for your clients. I get it. And that's a great part of us that does that. But we need to see where they fail. So part of the point of an enactment is it gives you a great MRI or an X-ray of what's going on. This is where it's stuck. I'm now heading to my third surgery since I've been this podcast. This is a bigger one. But, I had all kinds of MRIs and CAT scans and all this stuff. And, again, if I go into my doctor's office and the doctor's like, everything looks great, I'm like, well, why the heck am I hurting all the time? Right? We need to see the pathology. We needed to see the disease state. So as a therapist, you got to want to know where these yellow and red lights are. We see these as a part of the process that we expect, we anticipate, and that we're going to work with, as opposed to I'm frustrated or I'm terrified by this. So you're a lot more terrified by what you don't expect to see.
That's good. Well, y'all, thank you for being with us in this series. I think we're going to be in this one for a good while, the Stuck series. But the hope, and I'm excited for it, that Ryan and I are saying, what are the things that scare therapists the most, and how do we find a way to go help get them some clarity and join you on your journey? Thank you for letting us push your leading edge, because y'all definitely push our leading edge. And thank you for your work, because even this is talking about pushing your clients' leading edge too.
Red lights next episode.
There we go.
Thank you for listening. We hope this experience helps you push the leading edge in your work to help people connect with themselves and with each other. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a 5-star review. You can contact us at pushtheleadingedge@gmail.com, and you can follow us on our Facebook page at Push the Leading Edge. You can follow Ryan on Facebook at Ryan Rana Professional Training and on his website, ryanranatraining.com. You can follow James on Facebook and Instagram at DocHawkLPC. You can also check out his website, dochawklpc.com.